you heard the three things that Mud Creek and heaven have in common? Food, fellowship, and Highway 72 may get you to both places quicker than you think, so drive carefully. I'm James Jeffrey, pastor of Mud Creek Baptist Church. I tell people the best kept secret in Jackson County is in Mud Creek, and it's Mud Creek Baptist Church. 10 minutes from Scottsboro, 8 minutes from Stevenson on the corner of Highway 72 and County Road 181. Look us up on Facebook, or better yet, come see us Sundays at 10:30 a.m. Mud Creek Baptist, making much of Jesus. Welcome to the Meet at the Creek podcast, and I'm your host, Pastor James Jeffrey. If you have questions or comments, send them to mudcreekpastor@gmail.com. That's mudcreekpastor@gmail.com. Meet at the Creek, sermons, discussions, and real talk. Let's get into it. All right, guys. Well, it seems like I'm talking way out through yonder. Hold on just a minute. There we go. That's a little bit better. I had turned down the volume level here on my microphone a minute ago in the hopes that I wouldn't be so loud, but I guess I needed to be a little bit louder. Guys, welcome into the podcast. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I know you could have been anywhere, but you chose to be here, and that means a lot to me. So we welcome you into the podcast. If you hadn't already, do us a favor, like and share. Just go ahead and hit like, hit love, hit happy. You can even hit sad. I don't care. Just don't hit the angry face on me. But if you do that, it'd be all right too, just as long as you share it. Okay. All right. Tonight, very special guest, longtime friend of mine, and City of Scottsboro Assistant Superintendent, and former football coach. I don't know that you ever be a former football coach. Everybody that's ever coached me, I still call him coach. Mm-hmm. I can't help it. But Mr. Jason Hass, good to have you on the show tonight, brother. I appreciate you coming on.
Good to be here, James. And, you know, you talked about the angry face. Yeah. You know, you probably didn't need to have a school administrator and a former football coach on here if you don't want the angry face, because we seem to catch a good bit of the brunt of some of those angry things. But, no, it's good to be here. Glad to be here with you.
A few years ago, I think you and I don't remember who it was. It was on. We were talking on, having a little discussion, so maybe even a little agree to disagree kind of thing, and that's something I appreciate about you, by the way. But you said you made a statement. You said the three things that you never talk about in the South: you never talk about religion, you never talk about politics, you never talk about football.
Well, we like to talk about them, but if you want to make friends, you know, or keep friends, those things can be a little bit difficult.
Absolutely. So we're already getting a few comments. My wife, in pure wife fashion, said that she's got to come up with a nickname for us. And Lord have mercy, have I got a bunch of them down through the years. Jason, they've called me everything that you can think about being called since we started this, and they're all my friends. Mm-hmm. Every one of them are my friends. But this has been a wonderful thing since we started it, and it kind of started by accident. My daughter, had mentioned, Dad, why don't you start a podcast? People are not listening to, the radio, stuff like that hardly anymore, and I'm a proponent of radio. Mm-hmm. So I'm one of those old heads. I'm going to have to die hard on it, because I can't imagine a world without, AM, FM radio. Mm-hmm. And that said, I'm having to wean myself now off of digital radio. Mm-hmm. And part of that process has been, kind of cutting cords and cutting ties with my subscriptions and different things like that. And we have some stuff we use here at the church, and we have to have a subscription for it, so we don't have. Lord, you don't want to be in the middle of a service and try to hit the, cue a song that's queued up in a Bud Light commercial. Come on, or something, but it's so we pay for a couple of services so that we can have music available. But for the most part, I found myself I've gone back to listening to regular, even though I listen on my phone, I listen to the stations. And I'm a big fan of talk radio. I used to think it was so boring, and now I really enjoy it. And I'm learning that our younger generation is paying more attention to it, whether you agree with what they listen to or you don't. They're paying more attention to talk radio. I wish we had the same kind of mentality we used to have, where you can have different ideas and all. But even when you did, back in the day, I mean, it didn't matter. Everybody had their own opinion, But these days, it seems like, the opportunity for creativity and ideas are out there, but, it's just not as, folks just not as understanding as they used to be. They're not as cordial as they used to be, and they fight and carry on a lot. That's something I don't really tolerate. I try to be nice and try to de-escalate even when I do something stupid or say something, and I'm subject to, like anybody else. I have opinions, and sometimes I should keep them to myself. But your cousin Robbie Hass said to tell you hello.
Hey, Robbie.
Robbie and
Hass says we got to stick together.
Yeah, him and his wife Sharon, they come to church here, and they've been a blessing to us.
Fine people.
Robbie he comes to our men's meeting we have here on Thursday nights, and he's always got a colorful illustration, and I really enjoy that. I tell you, he's one of the things, I guess, growing up around Scottsboro in the 80s and the 90s is we all had colorful people. I remember your dad, construction man, and he was really no nonsense, but he was kind of laid back at the same time. I was scared to death of him as a kid because he was so big, and thought, my gosh, they ain't making him mad, like you just pop your head just with a squeeze of a hand. But as I got a little older, and you get to know people and you find out just how good, how great people really are. These people like that are, they're going, and it's really sad. I hate it from my children and grandchildren if they don't get to know some of the people that I got to know. Of course, now we're left with the task of becoming those people.
True.
For the next generation. So, if I'm not careful now, I'll talk the whole time. So you got to cut me off.
I'm enjoying listening.
You got to learn to cut me off here, because if you don't, I'll talk too much, and everybody gets on me about it.
Well, I will say a couple things about some of the things you said. First of all, you talked about radio, and you can go out to my car right now, and I rarely listen to radio, but if I do, I'm listening. I got to give a shout out to WWIC, Mr. Greg Bell. Because it's normally going to be listening to Scottsboro Athletics or something like that. But I'm kind of with you there. I rarely listen to the radio. I'm usually just listening to music that I have on my Apple subscription. But I don't listen to a lot of talk radio. I like I was telling you earlier, I do listen to some podcasts. A mentor of mine, Dr. Chip Dodd, he's got a podcast. It's called Sage Hill. And it's a good Christian, faith-based podcast. A lot of it is about, dealing with hurts, habits, and hang-ups, things that we all have. And he's just a brilliant man that's really helped me through some struggles in my life. So some podcasts here or there, but I'm not a big radio guy. But what you're doing here, this is fantastic. I think I was telling you beforehand that I didn't know anybody in Scottsboro did anything like this, and it's exciting to see this. I've seen some of the videos you put on Facebook of it, and it's exciting just to have people from Scottsboro to come sit and talk and just talk about what's going on in their lives. It's wonderful. So thank you for doing it.
Well, I appreciate that, and I got more than just I started it with Coach Hollis. He was my very first in-house. Well, actually, Craig Holcomb was my first in-house guest, and he came to my house, and I had my battle buddy from basic training, who's the sheriff of Blount County, and I had another pastor out on Sand Mountain, Nathaniel Bates. They joined me via telephone, and so they were all three in law enforcement, and all three of them in the ministry in some way, shape, or form, and we talked about that. So, and then Coach Hollis came, and we did the first one in here with him, and then it seemed like it went really well, so I just started asking people about coming, and then I had a few people reach out to me, say, it seems like a lot of fun. I'd like to come do that. So I got county commissioners coming. I got Pudge coming next month. Nita's going to be here next week, and
that'll be funny.
Yeah,
she's something else.
She is a riot.
Yeah, you're going to have to keep this thing a little bit away, because she's going to get excited now. Yeah. She's something else. She's wonderful.
Yeah, I know, and I'm really looking forward to that. I got Carl Partain coming. He's pastor of Pine Ridge Baptist over in Fort Payne. He'll be on the following week. And I got Katie Kirkland coming in October.
I taught her years ago.
Yeah, and man, there's just so many things that you can discuss and get into on one of these if you're not careful. And I never have scripted them, so I tried to one time. It didn't go very well, so I quit doing it. But the reason that I really started it, to kind of go back to where my daughter was saying, there's so many things about my life that I don't ever want anybody to know. However, I found out that those places, those valleys, those mountains, the good, the bad, the ugly, they're beneficial to people sometimes. And I'm learning a lot. You mentioned Chip Dodd. I'm going to check his podcast out, because I love to listen to, especially wise counsel, people who have a lot of experience and knowledge, and anything that can help me grow as a person and as a Christian. That I want to do those things. But I started listening to a guy named Preston Morrison, and he's from a place called the Pillar Church out in Arizona. But he's got a whole series of stuff on leadership, and he calls it the Leader's Cut. And I have really, as far as what I do here at the church, it's not something. Those are not things that are meant for everybody else. That whole concept of that podcast is to cut on the leader. And I tell the church a lot of times, I quote what his intro is. He said, to the extent that I desire to move through you, you must allow me to cut on you. And I have found out that anybody that's in leadership positions, doesn't matter how smart you are or where you're at, if you're in mid-level or lower-level management or upper level, if you're not willing to learn and grow, you're eventually going to start spinning your wheels, and then you're going to start sliding backwards. Because what I have learned, and you probably can attest to this, is that things change so rapidly. The culture changes so rapidly around us. If we don't do something, well, it'll leave us behind. We'll find ourselves behind the eight ball, trying to catch up, and never really catching, achieving what we're trying to, what we set out to do to start with. But
everything, you mentioned Chip, everything with Chip and another mentor of mine, Phil Herndon, who was a pastor up in Murfreesboro, large church there. Everything about what they teach is about, how to love deeply, live fully, and lead well.
Right.
And the ultimate premise behind all of it is for us to be servant leaders. You're talking about leadership, whether it's being a pastor of a church, of a school system, whatever it may be. It's all about how to serve others well. And sometimes that means making tough decisions that sometimes others don't quite understand what goes in all behind it. But it's also understanding that, when we make decisions, when we do things, people are going to have feelings behind them.
Yeah.
And it's learning how to process those feelings and work those feelings. And so they're deep guys, wonderful, wonderful guys that have really taught me a lot about leadership.
I think the last few years, seeing what's helped me, I think as much as anything else has helped me, is seeing guys like yourself, starting 10 years ago, when you guys started ascending to, places of leadership, in the systems and in your careers, and not just in the school system, but in other areas and other, jobs. I thought, it's time for me to quit fooling around. I was happy doing what I was doing and being, just in the middle. I guess mentally, I was just in the middle. I wasn't really striving to do or be any better. I didn't want to be. I had actually started regressing, willfully. And I got to say that willfully. Nobody forced me to, but willfully, I started going backwards. I just didn't want to be stressed out anymore. I was hitting that place in my mind where, I just want to be happy, and I don't want to fool. I'm too old, and but then I went through a series of bad things, and then I got to thinking, there's got to be more to life than just living and paying taxes and dying,
surviving.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't want to get through. I want to leave. I want to be remembered past my children.
I want to leave a legacy.
Yeah, and I want to do things to make an impact the best I can, for those that are coming behind me. And so, and that led me, to trying to go back to school, getting back into seminary, and I can't tell you. I told you earlier, I can't even name the amount of times I started and had to stop. Life just dictated it. But here, a couple of years ago, it got very. I mean, I could see the bachelor's. Boom, it was there, and all I had to do was just put a little bit of effort into it. And as I did that, through some mistakes that were made, not from me, but it's a funny story how it happened. I tested, and when I tested, they tested me for a master's degree material, and I nearly failed because I had not, I was in the bachelor's program, and I was telling my proctor, I said, I know you can't answer any of this, but I don't recognize any of this stuff, and whole sections, and I was just, going as fast as I could. Everything's timed, and I'm trying to write, and it's like I feel like I'm writing, essays every other question, and so then I finished that, and I thought, well, I'm going to pursue my master's. Started it. I got about 5 months into it, and the seminary calls me. Hey, we made an error, but you passed, and we can't force you to go back and redo it again. So I kind of got it by default. All I ended up having to do was write a thesis, and which I was terrified of, and it ended up being okay. And then I got to enter the doctorate program, and it only took me about 8 months, because after I turned in all of my classes, I only had 9 classes left to earn my doctorate. Well, I was tickled pink. But I did, my thesis was on this right here, this whole theme, making much of Jesus, just what you said a second ago. You referenced it, servant leadership. I use the term joy here a lot, Jesus first, others second, yourself last. And the more I try to do that, it seems like the harder things get. For whatever reason, the world doesn't seem to like, people trying to humble themselves, I guess is a good word. I don't know. Humiliation is just not something that people like or teach. About everything you turn on is going to be. I used to make jokes about it every morning. I used to get up every morning and listen to a 6 or 7 minute motivational video, and then have some Billy Alsbrooks or somebody telling me how much of a beast I am, and I'll be just trying to hype myself up for the day. And now I get up and I approach the day totally different. I spend about 30 to 40 minutes just me and the Lord, just talking to the Lord. And one of the things that I say actually every day, every morning now is, prepare me for whoever, whatever I'm going to face today, and help me handle it correctly. I want to do it the way you. Now, that doesn't mean I always do it the way the Lord would handle it, but I want to. But I tell you what, Jason, I was telling somebody the other day, I remembered a conversation that you and I had at the junior high school walking around the track one time, and I won't go into the details of it. I can share it with you a little bit later, but you made that was the day that I knew that I really liked Jason Haas. You know what I mean? That was the day that I knew that no matter where we went or what happened in our lives, that was the day I knew that I really liked Jason Haas. Just because of the way you responded to me. And we've had a lot of good times. Coach Morris was our driver's ed instructor. We had a lot of fun in driver's ed, especially when we got out driving, because me and you, we were so big, Coach, we got to go by ourselves because we'd have to turn sideways in that back seat.
And, of course, Coach gave us all kinds of hard time.
Oh, yes, he did. Yeah. And he loved to hit that brake.
He did.
Oh, man.
And act like, we've messed up or something. Yeah, he did that. Scared me to death.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember the first time he did that, and I laughed. I thought it was funny. Then he did it to me, and then all of a sudden it wasn't funny anymore. But, I learned I miss that guy. Man, I miss Coach something terrible. He, especially after he got out of coaching and even after athletic director, just his time just sitting and talking. Man, I really miss him. And I think back, to my younger days, how many more times I wish I had paid attention to the things that they were trying to tell us. Well, we could have had a real head start in life, and you did better listening to them than I did. But, I've always been very proud of you. I remember after you got to Jacksonville State, you made All-American, and I remember reading about that stuff in sports magazines and stuff, and I was always just really happy for you. And then when you came back to Scottsboro, to be honest with you, I was surprised you came back. I really thought you would be, if you pursued coaching, I thought it would be somewhere else, because I always thought you were a little bit above, your IQ for the game was a lot higher than most everybody. I know it was higher than mine. And people can say what they want to, but I used to have to ask you, on the way to the line of scrimmage after we broke the huddle, which way am I supposed to block? They finally moved me to defense, and that was a whole lot easier. And I don't know, in life is a lot of the same way. Now, it took me a long time to mentally, emotionally, spiritually even get to the place that some other people are. Well, I don't want to pin too many roses, because you've had your own set of struggles, and life dealt you its own hand. And at the end of the day, I sit here with you now, and I still feel the same way about you. I don't know that anything could ever change that, but I can tell you one thing that has helped me is seeing you persevere and come through it with a positive outlook on life. It helps me. So, I make a better effort every day to try to be more positive, even when things are bad.
Yeah. I grew up much like everyone around here that's our age. I grew up in a very loving home, very middle class. Like you mentioned my dad earlier. I feel like I had the best dad ever. I was blessed with that. And so grew up here at Hollywood Missionary Baptist Church, had just what I would consider to be a perfect home upbringing. You mentioned football. Football was something that was important to me. I loved it. And God blessed me. He blessed me with size and some ability, and those times playing high school football are still to me some of the most special times of my life. Larry Morris, Scott Keeling, Coach Keeling, he got it out of us.
Yeah.
And he pushed us really hard. And you mentioned some of the lessons we learned. We learned a lot of hard work and perseverance, like you mentioned. And it was a tough sport to play, but it was something that I'm glad that I did. Like you mentioned, going on to Jacksonville, learned a lot of things there too. Was blessed to be able to play all 4 years and did earn some accolades there. And I did, when I finished playing football there, I did consider coaching at Jacksonville. Actually spent a semester as a student coach. But getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning to be at workouts and then going to class and then being at practice all afternoon and being at meetings till 9, 10 o'clock at night, that just didn't seem to be what I wanted to do in life. So
I guarantee it.
I decided to come on back here and teach world history and coach, and again was able to coach with Larry Morris and Scott Keeling and Freddie Tidmore and Tony Rhodes, and those guys just kind of raised me in football. And they taught me so much, being able to coach with those guys, and I loved coaching football. I did have the aspirations of becoming a head football coach at some point. But, kind of like you mentioned, God had different plans for me. Things got tough, really tough for me. 2010, my dad passed away. And my dad was really the rock in my life. I love my mom. My mom's still here with me and love her to death. But my dad was kind of that person for me, who I could always go to. My grandparents all, other than my grandmother on the Hass side, all of my other grandparents had passed away before I was born. And so I didn't really have any relationships with them. With my grandmother Hass and Robbie, those guys, I was close to my grandmother, but I just, she passed away when I was real young.
Right.
And so I didn't really have a lot of loss in my life until my dad passed away. And then when he passed away, I just didn't really know how to deal with it.
Right.
And then about 10 months later, my son was born 3 months before my dad passed away. And about 10 months after he passed away, my son had a massive seizure. Had to be med-flighted to Huntsville. And I remember just breaking down. I couldn't handle this. Mm-hmm. I mean, between Dad passing away and Caden, I thought Caden was going to die too. Just going through panic attacks, things like that.
Right.
And then a few months later from that, I got out of coaching football and teaching, and I went to Huntsville High School as assistant principal and athletic director. And it was different, to say the least. When you go to a school that has 1,800 kids and has all different types of kids. Mm-hmm. We had the bow tie wearing, big money kids from Huntsville that their dads were aerospace engineers. They make 36 on the ACT. We went from those kind of kids to kids that had nothing. Kids that had really tough lives. Some inner city kids. It was a different world for me because being from Scottsboro, I was always used to Scottsboro kids, which were, our kids. We have special kids, and we have a special bond in Scottsboro. So it was different for me. It was tough. And then after a year of that, coming back to be principal at the junior high, I really, it was really ingrained in me that, performance is what's going to determine how people think of you. Yeah. And that's not sustainable. That's we belong and matter because God made us.
Amen.
God didn't make no junk. Now we're all, one of the things I tell my class that I teach on this stuff is, we're all goofy. Chip likes to say that we're all giraffes on ice, baby giraffes on ice.
Yep.
If you think of a baby giraffe, they're not meant to be on ice. Number one, right. They got these big long legs and they're goofy and they're awkward. Well, that's all of us. We're all awkward. Yes. but at the same time, we're constantly judging our insides to everybody else's outsides. And so we feel like we don't measure up. And that was me back in 2012, 2013, 2014. I was somebody that just didn't feel like that I measured up.
Yeah.
Had a lot of toxic shame. I felt like that here I am as a principal, and I felt like they've made a mistake. They just don't know me. And so, you know, just really went through some tough times with anxiety. Turned to some things that I shouldn't have turned to. Drinking, to try to kind of untie that knot.
Yeah.
And all that did was make things worse. So
Yeah.
finally I had to resign as the God of Jason, because really that's I thought that I was supposed to control all of these different things.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, that's being your own God. And it was when I finally realized that, you know, I've got to find a better God. And I was raised with that God, but kind of had, again, fallen into that idea of performance, that I was the one that was in control of things. It wasn't until I finally resigned as that God that I found peace and serenity.
And I find that to be something that's, you know, to the world that seems like a profound idea, but to me it seems so simple. You know, the more I influence myself, the worse that things are going to be. and I don't mean in a positive way. It's kind of like saying pride. You know, we understand that pride is, you know, spiritually speaking, pride is always talked about in a negative light. But there is a pride that is good. Having pride in what you do, it's really
Passion.
Yeah, that's really all it is, you know, being accountable to your own self, you're holding yourself to a higher standard. You know, that's the kind of pride that's good. You want to do those things, but at the same time, you got to be, you know, I had to learn to be very, very careful. And now people will tell me, I hear it all the time, man, and I get so aggravated when I'm talking to people, and they say, you know, you need to give yourself more credit. And really, I don't. Number one, I didn't get here alone. I did not. Anything that I have in this life, I did not get it by myself. Somebody either helped me get it, helped me learn how to get it, or went out and got it for me and handed it to me. You know, these are not things. Now, I may have to put in some sweat equity, you know, and those are even what you see here. I mean, there's a lot invested in this, but still, I wouldn't have done this if you know, Lindsay hadn't agreed to let us use the place. We wouldn't have what we have. I mean, a lot of people invested in what we're doing, and they invested in the idea and the vision that I had. But just like I'm telling you, that's a real thing. I had to, you know, say, okay, I don't need to be totally in charge of it. And along about August of last year, it finally, you know, the pressure was insurmountable for me. I couldn't take it anymore. I was very sick. I'd gained, terrible amounts of weight, totally unhealthy, had all kind of troubles, couldn't figure out anything that was going on. I got very depressed. I was just discouraged all the time, and I was trying to, you know, like you said, I was just trying to perform. I was trying to make sure that I'd get up, and I'd limp in here and barely could walk. I had bones out of place on my foot and didn't know it. And, you know, it was, and all of a sudden, you know, I just said, you know, Lord, why am I doing, you know, I did all this, and okay, does somebody else need to take over? I mean, was I just supposed to start it and, you know, and not see it through to the end? I mean, what's going on? What do you want me to do? And it was about that time that he said, you know, you didn't get here alone, and you're not going to stay here alone. And you got people that want to help you, and won't you just let them help you? So I just started saying, okay, you do this and you do that, and you know, help yourself. I don't want to stress about it anymore. And I found out that the more that I offloaded, there were other places where I was loading back up. Then I realized what was happening. God was trying to get my attention. There are things that I'm still growing, and other things we're expanding. We're doing some different stuff. I mean, we've got to a place now where we're gonna have to, build and expand and do some different things, and that comes with a price. You got to give up where you're at to go somewhere new, start all over again, and some people will say, "Man, you lose this, you lose that. Look at all you did and all that happened." I get all that, but I'm also very excited about the prospect of new things, and who knows what the Lord will do, and who knows who you get to influence and help and be a part of their lives, moving forward. One thing I do know, though, I don't want to do it by myself. I tell the church a lot of times, it's about, for me now, it's about the presence of God. And I say, God, I don't even want to go. If you're not going to go with me, I don't even want to go. I don't care how much money's involved or how much popularity. It doesn't matter. If you're not going to be there when I get there, I don't want to go. If you're not going to make the trip with me, I don't even want to tear out.
Because if God's not with it, if God's not in it, it's not going to be, fulfilling anyway.
Absolutely, man.
One of the things in the class that I teach, and the class I teach is called Voice of the Heart. It's from a book written by Dr. Chip Dodd, and in the class, you basically can condense it all down into one word: relationship. And everything, you're talking about the hard times that you went through, and it's kind of like with me when my dad passed away, the grief that I shouldered. What God intends for us when we go through those tough times is for us to lean on our relationships, or lean on the people that, well, first of all, lean on Him. Relationship with God. Then we're to lean on the relationships that we have in our lives, people that love us. And we are intended to have relationships with ourselves too. And people always wonder, what do you mean relationship with yourself? And I always talk to people about the fact that we need to know what's going on inside of us internally.
Right.
That was what I tried to run away from in my tough times, because when I had that knot in me, that anxiety, I never took the time to stop and think, well, why do I feel this way? What's causing this fear in me? What's causing this internal struggle in me? And I never would take the time to sit down and think about that and try to work through those things and talk to people about how I feel. Instead, I just tried to numb it away.
Right.
And we all do that. We all do it either with substances like alcohol or drugs. We do it with, devices. To me, that's one of the biggest addictions nowadays that I see, especially amongst our kids, is the fact that they can't even hold a conversation like this because they're so busy always doing this right here. So, whether it's gambling, whatever it may be, anything that takes us away from our heart and takes us away from relationship is something that, we're not intended to do. And so, you talk about the times you're going through those tough times, really that was God saying to you, lean on others. Lean on me, number one, and lean on others. There are other people that, you need to take some time off. If you're going through some physical struggles like that, then it's time for you to get yourself healthy and then lean on others to keep things going. So,
and I was able to do that. I don't want to downplay how important that was. That I had people. I would show up, sometimes, and it was all I could do. They'd try to get me to sit on a stool, and I realized that, just how important then I was to other people. And when I realized how important I was to other people, then I realized how important it was for me to take care of myself, to make a real effort to get whole, to get healthy. And when that journey began, it was tough. In the first 3 or 4 months, losing weight was difficult.
How much have you lost?
Over 90 pounds.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, I was up at 370 there
When did you start?
I started trying to lose. Well, I had my episode with my heart 1st of August last year, and started seeing the doctor. And we were trying to develop a plan. I did his plan for 6 weeks, and had just 3 or 4 pounds. Wasn't much, and I said, I think if I can do it my way, it'll be better. But I was taking so much medicine. I mean, you know how it is. Once they get you on stuff, you got to take this to help you with that, and that causes this, and you got to take something else for that, and that causes something else. I mean, and I just always felt like if I could just get my diet under control, that I could figure out the rest of it. And it took about, I think I lost 14 pounds from the 1st of September through Christmas. And then in January, things went really, I finally got control of my diet. And I started paying attention to what I was eating a whole lot better. And I got to get back on that, but I started paying a whole lot better attention to what I was eating, the kind of stuff I was eating. Started trying to walk more. I'd park further away at Walmart. Just every little thing I could do to get in an extra step or two. But then when Dr. Tommy fixed my foot, I was getting ready to have surgery on my foot, and come to find out, just one little bone out of place. He popped that thing back in place.
There you go.
And so now I'm back going to the gym and actually getting to exercise regular, and I feel better. Things are just really, really. But when that started, when the weight really started to come off, and then I was able to drop blood pressure medicine, cholesterol medicine. I mean, I was coming off all that stuff, and then I really, really felt good. I got a sleep study done. They changed my CPAP and put me on a new machine, and got that regulated, and I started sleeping better. Man, it was just
Well, I started losing weight about the same time. I was up to 349. That's what I weighed, not this June, but the June before. And I'd always, as you know, I've always had a struggle with my weight as well. Like I said earlier, God has blessed me with some size and ability, and eating. I could eat whatever I wanted to in college and high school because, we were so active with football. Right. But as soon as that went away, then, the weight kept coming on because I didn't change the way that I was eating. And so in 2008, I had gastric bypass surgery and lost a lot of weight, got real healthy, up until, again, when my dad passed away. And then I just kind of stopped. And then through years of administration and things like that, really stressful, just didn't work out, was too tired, all those kind of things. But last June, kind of like you're saying, I had some bad tests come back, knew that if I didn't start doing something, I was going to be sick. So yeah, I've lost about 80 pounds too.
That's awesome, man.
Really have gotten back into lifting weights, and probably a couple of guys are watching right now, Jason Arnold and Jeff Tubbs, Scott Hodges. We've all kind of started working out together, and it's been good for us. Lost a lot of weight. Reason I'm probably sweating right now is because, got a workout in before I came here, and my sugar's low, I think. Yeah. So,
well, I do that HIIT training, and of course I do mainly cardio stuff, but just because I generally go in the morning times, and we did that in the Army, and I just remembered how well it worked. Just to get your heart rate up, and the one thing that I struggle with, like hours, take a shower and it'd be hours down the road. I go to work. I work out at 4:30 in the morning. 7:30, I'm still sweating. It's my body's just still pumping, and I like it. I honestly, I wish I didn't have to work right afterwards, but I don't have time in the afternoons to go and spend. Doing what needs to be, I can't get a good workout in if I wait and go in the afternoons most days. I'm just so busy in the afternoons now. But I think it's probably an overlooked. I know it's not probably, it is definitely overlooked, is taking care of yourself physically, when you do that, it'll make a difference spiritually, emotionally, mentally, everything. You know, if you feel better, you can
do
handle a
better.
lot of things better.
You absolutely.
You said something earlier about your time in Huntsville. When you went down there, some of the lessons you learned, it kind of popped in my head that, do you think going away from Scottsboro, you were gone what, a year, 2 years?
1 year.
1 year. That 1 year that you spent away, when you came back in in an advanced role. Do you feel like you learned more from being away, or you learned more from your position while you were away?
I learned to really appreciate Scottsboro. I learned to really appreciate our teachers, our kids, our parents. Again, I was at Huntsville High School, which is a great high school. Some of the best kids you could imagine. Some of the best coworkers. I was blessed to be at Huntsville High School. But at the same time, people there are not like people here in Scottsboro. And so I just remember my first day coming back as the principal at the junior high, and as kids were getting out of the cars and they were coming up and they were smiling. They were saying, "Hey, how are you?" They wanted to shake my hand, things like that.
Yeah.
When a kid, and believe this or not, kids do get in trouble. But when a kid would get in trouble, and I would call Mom, and Mom was like, "Well, you just do whatever you think you have to do." That was not the way it was at Huntsville.
Right.
It was more of at Huntsville, well, what did you do wrong to cause my kid to get in trouble? So really, Huntsville taught me a lot of good lessons. But I think the biggest lesson was to really appreciate what we have. Again, we have here in Scottsboro, we're so blessed.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I feel like we don't really recognize it. We don't recognize what we have in terms of great teachers, great kids. I think sometimes we can focus on the negatives sometimes rather than the positives. And that's what it really taught me, was to appreciate what we have.
I've saw that too, and I tell people this a lot of times now, is in Scottsboro, we always kind of felt like we compared ourselves to, the Huntsvilles and Decatur's and those kind of programs. But really and truly, coming out into the county now and being up here like halfway between, we help a lot of we try our best to help as many of the elementary schools and middle schools around in the county area here as we can, because the reality is a lot of my folks that come here, they have kids that are scattered around in the county schools. I have people that drive from Woodville and Bridgeport and New Hope, Tennessee, and South Pittsburgh and Section and Rainsville, Fort Payne, Bryant. There's just people come from all over. One of the things that I have really, it shocked me, was to see how there's a big difference in Scottsboro and North Jackson, and there's a big difference in North Jackson and Hollywood, and North Sand Mountain and Pisgah. That some of these places are very well supported, and some places are not so well supported. I was blown away at the lack of funding that Hollywood gets. So we concentrate a lot of our effort here to helping those kids in Hollywood, because for whatever reason, it's just not. They just don't have the same opportunities that I took that for granted. I had no idea.
Exactly. Scottsboro, when we went to school, the poverty rate for Scottsboro City Schools was probably around 25%. That was the poverty rate. We've been looking at some of our numbers lately, and in 2008, the poverty level at Scottsboro City Schools was 31%. All right. In 2018, it had climbed to 47%. Right now, it is at 62%.
Whew.
So, a lot of times people think, well, it's a city school system, it's a wealthy school system, but it's not.
No, truly not.
We're a school system that, we've got a lot of needs. A lot of our kids come to us now, and again, it's not because parents are bad or anything like that. It's just that they come to us now with gaps. It's just the world we live in, and we have to try to bridge those gaps. And so, really, you mentioned the county system. Kind of, in athletics, we have great rivalries. Like I was telling you earlier, as a football coach, as a player, we hated North Jackson.
Yeah.
But now once you get into administration, you kind of see things differently. Those are kids. I want North Jackson to be successful. I want Hollywood to be successful. I want their school system to be great because those are kids, and they're kids that are really surrounding our community. But they have the same struggles we do. Just the fact that we've got a lot of kids that come to us now that have a lot of needs, and it's wonderful that that your church and our church is really big with a program called Nourish One Child. Our kids need it.
Yeah.
And it takes a community to do so.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those. I always said, and I say this a lot here. There are some things that I'm not going to do. Number one, when we started this up here, I decided that I wasn't going to take a salary anymore for doing this. Now, someday that may change down the road. I get retired and don't have anything else to do but this. But as long as I can work and the church is okay with me holding the job, now that means I miss other things. I can't be there for every injury, every surgery. I have to kind of pick and choose when I do and when I can, that kind of thing. But it does allow us to do things like, meet some of those needs. I've went around to the principals, even at Scottsboro. Don't let me find out that a kid goes hungry because they don't have lunch money. And if they need money, nobody has to know. Just call me. We'll take care of that. We need to know where those needs are at now. Do some people take advantage of that? Yeah, but at the end of the day, I can't. I grew up in a house where my mom was a school bus driver. My dad was in the trucking business. We didn't have a whole lot, and they were divorced, and it was just that times were tough, man. I remember what it was like to be, to watch my mom struggle. And my mom was like, we had the relationship that you and your dad have. So when my mom passed away, I went through a whole lot of the similar things that you did, and I identify with a lot of what you said because it was so difficult for me. But now I see other kids, and these kids that come here, and I got Scottsboro players, and I got North Jackson players, and I got kids coming down from the mountain, and their moms and dads are here, and they're all here together. They're not here, but they're not Chiefs, and they're not Wildcats, and
our kids.
They're just people, and that's something that the Lord actually helped me, overcome. And He used Greg Bell to do that. I give Greg a lot of props for that. But Greg always used to say, when we're here, when we're doing this, it's all about those kids. And people used to ask me all the time, what do you enjoy most about the radio, doing that? I said, it's something very refreshing about just sitting around, spending your time for an hour or 2 or 3 or whatever, giving somebody else credit. Just talking good about whatever's going on in front of you.
Talking about there's so much community involved. I mean, that's what's wonderful about a Friday night
Yes.
or a basketball game or any event that our kids are taking part in. It's just a community.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's nothing like being there surrounded by everybody in your community and being able to talk about something that is just fun for a little while.
Yeah. Something that everybody kind of shares in, I go to the North Jackson game sometimes and look up in the stands and I see kids. Well, they're not kids anymore. They were kids when I was a kid. Now they've got kids that are playing at North Jackson, and there's Scottsboro people sitting up there hollering "Go Chiefs!" And then You know, I come to Scottsboro and I see people over there that I knew grew up. I played against them at North Jackson. They're down there hollering, "Go Cats!" Now, my mom was a Stevenson Panther, and but she died a Wildcat. You know, it was just it was one of those things. It was it's amazing to me to see how, you know, people changed, and when I started seeing it from a different perspective, you know, now I have joined the crowd of, Lord, forgive me, I've joined the crowd of leave the officials alone.
I'm with you.
You know, I mean, this is,
They're doing the best they can.
yes.
Yeah.
I mean, these guys they're not getting paid enough
No.
to listen to some of our junk.
And unfortunately, society's gotten to the point where they attack these guys so much that we're getting to the point we don't have any.
Yeah, you know, Greg and I talked about this last year before one of the basketball games. Is, you know, they're canceling games now,
Yeah.
because they don't have officials. I read an article just today about an 8-under baseball game where 6 coaches, you know, circled around you know, an umpire, and I'm thinking to myself, if you guys want to keep playing, this has got to change, you know, and it's really got to change. And last year, you know, everybody always says this for years and years and years. I was the guy that said, "Boy, these officials are terrible. They got it in for us." But when the game was over, generally, you know, if I'm just being honest with myself, we deserved what we got. You know, very rarely did an official really decide a ball game. You know, you could say that maybe because they had a call on the last play. Coach Tidmore taught me that lesson one night. It was a couple of controversial calls, and he said this after the game to me. He said, you know, 1 or 2 plays, 1 or 2 bad calls, that's not what cost us the game. It was the other 32 minutes that we didn't do anything, you know, and it kind of changed my perspective. But last year during basketball season, I heard Coach Bell make a comment. He wasn't talking to the official. He was actually conversing with another coach, but the official heard him, and it offended him. And I watched that guy, and I told Coach Bell, I said, that guy, I mean, I watched him stare at him. I said, he's got it in for you. And I mean, he blowed, I think he blowed 30, I think he himself called 32 fouls against us, and cost us a game. And it was he was in a tournament at Scottsboro. I couldn't believe it. But the dude just said, if I'm not coming back, you're going to remember me. And
Well, they are human beings.
They are.
and they you know, they make a lot of mistakes, and they can allow feelings to cloud their judgment. There's no doubt. But I do feel, like you said, the vast majority of them are doing the best they can. And you know, the thing with sports, we get so passionate about it, and it means so much to us that sometimes that can cloud our judgment and how we treat these people. But we got to remember that they're an important part of the game. You know, I think about the Alabama-Tennessee game last year. Yeah. You know, I'm a big Alabama fan, and you know, I was just sick after that game. I really couldn't help but feel like the refs played a big part in it. But, you know, again, just got to think back. These guys, they're not out to try to fix a game. They're doing the best they can.
Yeah.
We got to give them a little grace, because we all like a little bit of grace. Yeah. So
I remember this. Funny you say that. I remember in '93, you were telling a story. I think you'd went on a recruiting trip or something to Mississippi State, and you were there for Mississippi. You know, as a guest.
I was a guest for Mississippi State, but they were playing Alabama.
Yeah, and you said Alabama scored, and you thought,
"Ooh, yeah." I sure did. That was tough. Because my dad was with me too, and again, he's a big Alabama fan. So we're just sitting there, and Alabama scored, and of course they start playing the fight song, and we're just sitting there going to each other, just like, Alabama, you know, just trying to be.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's one thing that I have never forgotten is you telling that story, because I thought that was the greatest thing.
That was the year that Alabama won the national championship. That was the '92 team.
Oh, was it 92?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I thought it was 93, but you're right. It was 92.
It was the '92 team, and we were there. That was the night that Mississippi State actually scored in the fourth quarter to take a lead over Alabama. And then Antonio Langham.
I was going to say, I thought he picked off a pass and returned it.
Well, he first they blocked a punt.
Okay.
And picked it up, scored. That put Alabama back ahead. But Mississippi State had the ball again, and they could have gone down and scored to win. And Langham intercepted the pass.
Yeah.
So it was a great game, and it was hard to not cheer.
Yeah.
When you love Alabama, and that was a lot of fun.
Yeah. The other day I was thinking about, Coach Brumley when we first started playing football, and we were in junior high then. Coach Page, Coach Brumley, Coach Tabor, those guys are. We thought they were just terrible. As you get older, you realize just how good of guys they really were. They were getting no glory, not very many pats on the back, that type of thing. But they really invested in us.
Well, I'll tell you what I've grown to learn about football is if you want a really good football program, you really got to invest in your junior high coaches and make sure that you put some guys there that, number one, they see the importance of relationship, because you're never going to get a kid to play for you if they don't trust you
Right.
and love you as a coach. And so that's where Coach Brumley, and Coach Page, they were guys that they understood that. Coach Brumley was tough on me. I didn't like him a whole lot. Still don't. He's probably watching right now. I'm just kidding.
I think he's driving the bus for North Jackson this year, actually.
Joe Reed Brumley is a fine man.
Yes, he is.
I don't normally say that about him, but I'll do it today. But no, I love him to death. He's not only did he coach me, he's been a co-worker. We coached together for years at Scottsboro, and he was a teacher at the junior high when I was the principal there, and he kept me straight. So, yeah, Joe Reed, he had a big impact on my life, because I don't know that I would have stuck with football if not for some of his guidance. So
yeah, he, I think one of the best things he ever did for me, actually, but besides all of the other stuff, but probably the one thing that I remember Coach Brumley did to me that worked out in my benefit was he told on me one time. He told my mama that I hadn't been turning in my math homework. And he called us in Hood Drugs. It's where Kramer's Gym is now. And, man, I couldn't have crawled into a hole and died any quicker. My mama looked at me. She said, "Oh, really?" And, oh, my gosh. I mean, all the way home. I was up till 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning doing math. I had to make up every single assignment that I hadn't done. She made me do some things over again just for good measure. Oof, it was
and of
awful.
course, when that happened, you probably thought Coach Brumley was just being mean. That
No.
he had it out for you, or he was just being mean. He, in reality, discipline is something you do for someone.
Yeah.
Discipline is love. So you kind of hit a soapbox for an administrator here.
Yeah.
That sometimes has to discipline kids.
Yeah.
No administrator, no coach, no teacher wants to get a kid in trouble.
No.
Just like what he did for you right there, that was important because, that held you accountable so that you would do what you needed to do to learn the lesson that you needed to learn.
Yep.
And that's what, our teachers, our coaches, our principals, that's what they're there for. They love kids.
Yeah.
No principal wants an angry mama in his office yelling at him.
No.
But he's going to hold the child accountable so that the child learns a lesson. And so, that's one of the things, again, that we're blessed with in Scottsboro is that we still have that code, if you will, of, hey, we love these kids. We're going to hold them accountable, and we're going to help them grow, because we all make mistakes.
Absolutely.
I mean, I make mistakes every day as a 47-year-old. A 13-year-old is going to make mistakes too. A 12-year-old is going to make mistakes, and we got to be there to help them learn those lessons.
I really wish, if I could have gone back, and I say this, if I could go back and redo something, I would redo my 7th and 8th grade school. And when I say I'd redo them, I wouldn't want to redo everything. All of those experiences weren't negative. Most of them were positive. But I would have paid more attention in English in science, in math, because I hated them. I hated
Well, most
those.
7th and 8th grade boys do.
Yeah. I didn't have. I wanted to think about anything else besides that, but I wish I had paid more attention. I could have been a lot further along, a lot faster, if I had, paid a little more attention to that. Now, Coach Brumley ensured that my attention to mathematics was, up to snuff.
Sufficient,
But that didn't happen until my freshman year, and that was a lesson that I had to learn the hard way.
Yeah.
But now I look back, and he just didn't do that for me. He also did that for my mom. He gave her. He just opened up the door for her to be able to interject herself back into my education.
Yeah, to make sure that her son
Yeah.
was taken care of.
Yeah.
And
she got to play a big part in it, and from then on out, she was always involved in everything that I was doing. And that translated into my grandmother becoming involved in what I was doing. Everybody was paying attention because of that one incident. For 3 years, everybody paid attention to what I was doing at school. So I didn't have any choice but to try to do better. And, and I had some great teachers, man. I say this a lot of times, Coach Kirkland did a lot for me. When I got hurt playing football, I had, one of those injuries that in our day they didn't know a whole lot about. They just knew that it was
hurt.
It was hurt, and chances if you get hit too many times, you may not be able to walk anymore. You may end up crippled. So, of course, that scared me to death. But Mom wouldn't let me quit doing athletics altogether. So, Coach Meeks, asked me to come out for basketball, and he left before I ever actually went to practice. And Coach Kirkland took over, and he became very important, in my life. Right there with him, I don't even know that they're 1A and 1B, but there is Miss Russell.
Oh, yeah.
Becky Russell.
I had her too.
She was I got a little bit behind. Well, I was a whole lot behind in English when I came to the high school, but Coach Keelan and I, which let me just say this before I say what I'm about to say. Coach Keelan, Scott Keelan, is one of the finest guys that I ever had the privilege to know. If I would have approached him a little bit better, a little differently, I would have never suffered some of the things that I had to suffer. But now when I see him, you would never know that he and I ever didn't see eye to eye on something. But we had a little disagreement about freshman English, and he put me back in remedial class. I didn't need to be in remedial English, but I did need to be, because Miss Russell knew that I didn't need to be there, and she made me work. She made me do all of that work. Plus, she would give me extra, so that because she intended to put me back in, regular English the next year, and I did. I got Miss Ann Sharp, who was a fantastic teacher
Miss Sharp too.
She was wonderful, but Miss Russell made me do all that work plus all of the work that other sophomores were doing, so that I wouldn't be behind when I got there. She made sure that when I re-entered the regular class, that I was going to have the same opportunity everybody else had, and I did.
And what's amazing about those teachers you mentioned is, some of them are still there.
Yeah.
Betty Esslinger is still teaching, and,
Still there.
is as effective as she was the day she started. Cindy Wade. Miss Wade is still there. I'm sure you've seen recently, every kid in her AP calculus class, passed the AP Cal test.
Wow.
That's unprecedented. I mean, you don't see that. So you're talking about some amazing teachers that are still there, just still impacting kids' lives. But yeah, Coach Keeling, when I think of people that have impacted my life, again, Larry Morris, Scott Keeling, they could get it out of me. When I first started playing football, I was a big, lazy kid, didn't want to put a lot of effort into it. Well, when you got Larry Morris and Scott Keeling getting after you, you're going to put out,
Yes.
or you're going to get gone.
Yes.
And then academically, Charlie Keller, he instilled in me a real love for history. That was the subject that I really loved English too. I really loved the literature. You talk about Becky Russell. I loved her class, To Kill a Mockingbird, those kind of things. But
Yeah.
but when I was a senior and I took world history with Charlie Keller, I was just mesmerized by the stories he told, and just learned, about the world and things that happen, human nature. And when it came time for me at college to decide, your first 2 years, you were undecided.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really didn't put a lot of thought into what I was going to do after those 2 years. I was here to play football. And if somebody asked me, what are you going to do after you get through playing football? Well, I'm going to go to the NFL.
Yeah.
That's just my immediate thought. I'm going to the NFL. But after 2 years, they asked me, well, what do you want to do? Well, I really love coaching. I love football. I want to be involved with football. So, because I want to be like Larry Morris and Scott Keeling. But also, I love history. So I'll be a history teacher like Charlie Keller. And that's why I chose to do history. And then by the time I got through playing college football, my fourth year, I didn't want to play any more football. I was done with it. I didn't want to even really think about the NFL. I wanted to be done with it. And so, again, those people, that's what led me down the road that I'm on now. So I'm thankful for them.
Yeah, me too. And sometimes I don't have the right words to say. I ran into Coach here a few weeks ago at the Square, and every time I see him now, I shake his hand. I try to hug his neck.
How about Coach Keeling?
Coach Kirkland.
Kirkland, okay.
Coach Kirk. The last time I saw Coach Keeling, believe it or not, I ran into him out on Lookout Mountain. Mm-hmm. We were at the 7,000-mile yard sale or whatever they call it,
Mm-hmm.
and Miss Kirby was out through there, but we just happened up on him at a gas station, and I walked over, talked to him. It's amazing. I still felt weird about talking with Scott Keeling like he was one of the guys, but that's how he was talking to me,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm standing there like, I feel like I ought to be doing push-ups or something.
Yeah, that's the way I felt when I came back to teach and coach. I was like, you mean I'm supposed to coach with you guys? Aren't y'all supposed to coach me?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny. It's how things change, and
Mm-hmm.
it's an amazing thing to me. Now I sit out here, sometimes I look out across the congregation, and I recognize faces of people, 20 years ago that were teaching me,
Mm-hmm.
and now I'm up there teaching them. They're coming up telling me, "Oh, that's awesome. I had no idea, that was in there. You taught me something today," and I'm just amazed. I'm blown away. I just had a note here. It said, "Please tell Jason Haas, this mom will always be thankful for listening and following up with me and Justin last year. With his help and answered prayers, Justin is doing great this year, and we're ready for some football." And that came from Miss Kim Baker.
oh, okay. Miss Baker, a great young man. Great young man.
Yeah, they come to church here too. Justin's here, and I kind of, I don't have to tell you anything about the all about it, but that's the kind of thing now that I enjoy. Is getting to do just exactly what you're enjoying, trying to make a difference, and then in the lives of young people and in the lives of their parents.
Well, I got to know Justin last year. I started off, I coached a little bit with the junior high. I saw that they had some need, and unfortunately, with my job the way it is, I'm called away so often. There's so many things that I've got to take care of that I didn't really get to help as much as I wanted to. But I got to know and help with the offensive line for the junior high last year, and Justin was one of those kids. And again, just you could tell he's got a lot of potential. He's going to be a good young offensive lineman for Scottsboro in the future.
Yeah,
fine young man, and learn from some mistakes, and he's doing some good things. He's going to be a good boy.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see where he ends up. His dad was a greedy football player. He's a little older than us, but you hear all those stories. And he was a greedy football player, in his day, and Justin's got a lot of his dad in him.
He's going to be a big boy. He's going to be a good one.
Yes, he is. I mean, he was real quiet for a long time when they first came here. He wouldn't say anything, but then after a while, he sort of opened up, and we kind of got to know him a little bit, and everybody, is kind of taking to him now. He's got a bright future ahead of him.
I agree. I think he is. I think he will.
That leads me to something else. What is it exactly? I know you have more responsibilities than just assistant, superintendent. So what else is it that you actually do?
Well, in a system like ours, we're really, you think of Scottsboro City as being a big system, but really we're not. We're really a small system. In a lot of your bigger systems, you'll have one person that concentrates on one role. But because we're a smaller school system, we have many different hats we wear, which, it's a blessing and a curse. It's a curse because you're constantly shifting gears and sometimes you feel overwhelmed, but it's a blessing because you really get to learn about what all goes into running a school system. And so for me, I have many hats. The first position that I was hired for is secondary curriculum and instruction, which is really concentrating on the junior high and the high school to make sure that, the teachers and the principals have the things that they need to be able to do the important work. I look at it as my role is to give the teachers, because we respect them as professionals,
right,
give them the things that they need to do the work because they're going to do it because it's Scottsboro. So secondary curriculum instruction, that's one hat. I'm also the director or the coordinator of testing. So all the state testing that we have to do, I have to coordinate that, make sure that we have all the materials, make sure that we follow all the protocols. It's a lot. It's a whole lot. I'm also the director of career tech education. So that's been something that, the state of Alabama, we've really concentrated on over the last 5 to 10 years. You see, of course, the beautiful building that the county has built, Kevin Duke's Career Innovation Center,
right,
that, some of our kids attend. But career tech is something that we've put a lot of emphasis on. We've got a lot of great partnerships, a lot of things that are happening in our school system with that, and so I'm excited about that. Some other roles. I'm over the virtual platform that we've had to implement since COVID. Discipline. I'm the guy that kind of helps the principals. Yeah, helps the principals direct discipline, things like that. Federal programs. I'm over a federal program called Title IV, and I work with Miss Corky Hood on federal programs. So just many different hats, really. But like I said, it's a blessing. I enjoy it. Even though there's difficulties, it's very busy. It's something I love because I know that what I'm doing is trying to help the people that matter do the job. Right. I got into education because I love kids, and really grew to really love kids as a teacher. But then got into administration, and I saw that administration is also a fulfilling position because then you get to love the people that love the kids.
Right.
That's the whole idea behind administration. And so that's the way I look at it. Do whatever I can do to give the Miss Wades, the Miss Esslingers, whoever, all of our teachers and all of our principals, the tools that they need to get the important work done.
You feel like that makes you appreciate all the people who invested in our lives growing up even more?
Absolutely.
I think for me, just kind of once I started doing like radio work and I started getting reacquainted with the school system as not a part of it as a student, but from the outside looking in, going, if things don't if things don't go better, they're going to go worse, and that's we don't want to go backwards. And then, then the more you learn, and I think a lot of this part of the reason that I do this podcast here is to help educate people on things that they may not know about, and people that work behind the scenes that they have no clue. Stacy made a comment last week to Mr. Aspirin. He said, a lot of the decisions that are made that are bad decisions were made because of bad information.
Yeah. And good intentions.
Yes, had great intentions.
Nobody just thinks, oh, you know what, I want to make a bad decision. Yeah. I really want to make a lot of people upset. I think this will be great to make a lot of people upset. A lot of times you have to make decisions, and, you take the information that you have and you do the best you can, and at the same time, everybody has a perception of why you made that decision. And a lot of times they don't know the background. They don't know the story behind it. I can think of when I was in the classroom, I might see this much of what's going on, but I had an opinion based on what I see.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I became an assistant principal, I might see this much of what's going on, but I had an opinion. And then when I became a principal, I might see this much. And now that I'm where I'm at now, I might see this much, but I'm trying to make decisions based on all that I see, but I still don't see everything.
Right.
But when we can't see all of it, we think we know, and we just don't know.
Right.
And sometimes again, that's where that grace comes into play that we were talking about. That people make decisions based on the best information that they can. Sometimes they don't go right, and when they don't, maybe give them a little grace.
Yeah, I've always said, especially now, like I have to make a choice of if the weather's bad. I can't just think of the people who live a mile from the church.
Mm-hmm.
I have to think of the people who live, 30, 40 minutes away.
Mm-hmm.
They got their children in the car.
Mm-hmm.
They're coming across the mountain. They're coming through low places. They're coming on county roads and back roads that aren't as well taken care of in the winter. And, those people can make their own choice and decide whether or not they want to come. Well, but I know that if I say yes, we're going to meet, they're going to come, and they're going to put themselves in harm's way, maybe even to get here. Am I prepared to live with that?
Yeah.
And I got a quick answer for that. No, I'm not.
Yeah.
So, I reach out to people who are weather savvy, tech savvy, whatever you want to call it. They have information that I don't have. I'll ask their opinions. Based on the best information you have, would it be a good idea? Can you, and I'll reach out to those people. Sometimes I was like, we're gonna have it, but you probably need to set this one out. But for everybody on this side, come on. I'm just not willing to do it anymore. And there was a time when I was a little more hardcore about it. But these days, I need you for the next 10 years. I don't need you for this 10 minutes. You know what I mean? It's not worth it. So those are things that affect me. You and I had a conversation one time about the school year, the school calendar. And, because you had mentioned about, all of the different the cutoff times, and you said, and I'll never forget you saying this. You said, "What about educating our kids? When are you going to? What about leaving time to do that?
Yeah.
We can't take off. For everything, and I understand that's not popular, especially amongst kids and probably people who work in the system, or even educators for the most part. But if we get too far behind, America has never, honestly, I'm just going to say it. I thought I was lazy, but we're honestly, I think we're maybe getting lazier as it goes along, because we've enjoyed, being ahead of the curve. Now these other countries and places, other parts of the world, they're working hard, and they're catching us and passing us in a lot of places. Some people don't know that from 1981 up until last year, I think it was, Scottsboro's enrollment every year from 81, that's the year you and I started school, went down, we got lower and lower and lower.
Well, if you think about it, when we were ninth graders, Scottsboro, this was back when there were 6 classifications. We were 6A, which is the largest classification in the state. I think we had 1,300 kids at that high school when we were ninth graders. Yeah. And that, that was when TVA was up and running, the Randall and all, Scottsboro steel, aluminum, all those things were just going, and we had 1,300 kids. Now we have 700. So we're talking about half. And every year it seems like we just dwindle a little bit more. But Scottsboro's population, I think, has held steady over the last 10, 15, 20 years.
For this last census that we had, for the first time, we eclipsed 16,000 in the census. But now, being in sanitation, we talked about this a little bit last week. I get a unique perspective on that, but we have a lot of people that live here for 9 months out of the year, but they still, when they fill out a census, they for wherever they're from, the Dakotas, Colorado, California, Oregon, Arizona's, New York's, Pennsylvania's, Maine's. We have a lot of people here from other places. This is their vacation home, but they live here the majority of the time, but they still count somewhere else.
Where they're at, yeah.
And, that hurts us in a lot of ways. But I remember our graduating class, there was 208 people that graduated. And I thought that was huge.
We're usually in the 170s now.
Yeah. And a few years ago, just to put it in real perspective, we played, I don't remember, I think Coach Swain Morris was our football coach. We played at Sparkman for a jamboree game. No, it was the first game of the year. We played at Sparkman. And I'll never forget it. We went out on the field, and I was just blown away. I mean, they had more kids on the sidelines than probably we had in our freshman class.
Yeah.
I mean, it was ridiculous. But somebody actually told us before the game started that Sparkman had their own freshman academy. It was like a big old building. It was the size of our high school. I was like, man, that thing's as big as our high school. And they said, and they told me how many kids were in it. They had more kids in their freshman academy than we had in our entire 9 through 12. And we were nearly in the same classification as them. I was blown away. I just, the disparity, and I was glad that the Athletics Association split those schools off. It just was not fair.
Well, Scottsboro, we need to be in 5A.
Yes.
And we're in 5A right now, and I think that's part of why we had, one of the finest athletic seasons we've ever had last year in all sports.
Yeah.
That's where we belong. That's where we can compete. We can't. It's hard for us to compete with schools that have 1,400 kids.
Yeah.
They just have more kids. So, I think that's where we're at, and I say that's where we're going to be, and that's good for our kids.
Yeah, it is good. And I wanted to ask you this question. We're practically out of time already, but I wanted to get your opinion about it anyway, because nobody's ever been really willing to answer the question. So I'm going to kind of surprise you with
Put me on the spot.
Yeah. What do you think about private schools competing with public schools?
I think there's I would prefer if Jason was in charge of the world, I would feel like that it would be better for them to compete with themselves.
Yeah.
The problem is, they're able to draw, different pools of kids, things like that. I think I read last year where, I can't even remember. Maybe it was basketball where, 4 of the 6 state champions were private schools, or indoor track, like all of them were private schools. It's just hard. To me, we're comparing apples and oranges. They have, different types of advantages that, the public schools do not. So I kind of think it's fair for public schools to compete against public schools.
I agree with you on that. I don't.
But that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I don't want to say that they don't deserve opportunities to compete.
No.
But I'm with you. If they're already getting, there's advantages to going to private school, and but there's disadvantages to that as well. And, you know, I totally understand all that. I wish it were, you know, now they've got the Tebow rule, and everybody's a Tim Tebow fan. I don't have anything negative to say about him, but
No.
you know, you know, a child can be homeschooled and compete in the school.
We have several of those.
You know, and I'm not against that. I'm for that. If you know, if somebody wants to homeschool their kids, that's their prerogative.
That's their choice.
You know, but if they meet the standards and, you know, fulfill all the requirements, I'm for them having opportunities to, you know, to compete and especially in athletics and stuff. They need that. I think every, you know, especially if they're not going to public school, they probably need that socialization and to be around other people and be around other ideas and other ways of thinking, help them learn how to be, you know, to grow into a productive adult anyway. I worry sometimes that with the charter schools and things like that, we're kind of we're going to lose a little bit of, you know, of what what the school system was designed to do.
Well, you can look at Florida. You know, Florida's kind of the wild, wild west when it comes to education, public education, private education down there. They have so many different public schools, private schools, charter schools, and I agree with you. You know, for guys our age, you know, we think of our school days, they were special, you know, and you know, those Friday nights and those basketball games, those baseball games, all, you know, it was just that community feel. And, you know, we were going to go play North Jackson. And we were going to go play Fort Payne. And we were going, you know, we had these traditional rivalries that, you know, were just so important. And you're right. As we start to see more charter schools, more private schools, more, you know, just, you know, I think in the last legislative session, you know, there was even starting to talk about, you know, school choice where, you know, even if you live in Scottsboro, if I want to send my kid to Hoover, to go play football, you know, and to be educated, then my tax dollars go to Hoover. You know, I'm not going to debate the merits of that, but it's just, again, to me, you're losing some of that community. You're losing, you know, a Scottsboro kid playing for Scottsboro, or, you know, a Scottsboro kid getting an education in Scottsboro.
Right.
I think for guys like us, that's still important, and you know, but you know, that's for somebody else to decide, I guess.
I think, and I blame some of this on the college, the NCAA. You know,
Don't get me started on that.
You know, this whole idea now. I mean, it's almost like, you know, they should have made things a little bit harder on coaches. But there's some valuable lessons. I know it seems unfair to the kids, but I remember Gene Stallings used to say this all the time. A kid should never go to school. You know, you should never play football somewhere based on the coach. You should play football based on the school. Go to a school because you want to get your education, because you want to graduate from that school. You know, go there and be part of that, you know, that culture, that program. Go to school for the school, not for the coach. And I totally, I'll never forget that. You know, Sweeney at Clemson, he's the same way. You know, that's one of the reasons he's been very successful there. He just gets Clemson kids, you know, kids that just want to be part of that culture. They don't have a lot of transfers. Kids who commit to them generally don't decommit, and it's that kind of vibe. But in this day and age where, well, if you don't like it, you just leave, go somewhere else.
Yeah.
I'm seeing now kids going into their junior and senior year of high school because they don't like this coach, or they don't want to play this position. They want to play that position, and they just leave.
Yeah.
And go somewhere else and drive across state lines, or drive 2 districts over, or rent a house just so they can be. I mean, it's crazy.
It is.
Some of the stuff we're seeing, and I really, it shouldn't surprise anybody that everything's kind of losing its luster. It's just,
it really is to me. You know, as somebody that has been a lifelong, I love college football. It was a real, you know, just passion of mine. And over the last 2, 3, 4 years, I've gotten to where it doesn't mean that much to me anymore, because, like you're saying, it's not about your team. For the players, it's all about what can I do to further myself, rather than what can I do to help my team win. And yeah, to me, it's just not what it used to be. To me, it's minor league football now. So
These that's one of the reasons that I kind of endeavored for the rest of my life to try to do stuff like this, to let other people know, like yourself, there are people out here on the opposite side of the spectrum from you in different roles, different places. I'm rooting for you, and I know you guys are rooting for us. We're kind of all in this together. At the end of the day, we want to make the world better. Absolutely. And the best way to do that is to influence in a positive way, those that are coming up behind us. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to make everybody happy. Mm-hmm. I know that. You can't make everybody happy, and you know that. Knowing that we're going to fail some and succeed where other people are concerned. I never want to be a failure. You said it a minute ago. I hate to fail. Mm-hmm. Probably as much as I hate anything. Mm-hmm. Failing is just not something I get up in the morning wanting to do. But living with that failure, accepting the fact that I'm not great at everything, those are things that I learned to do.
Again, a great mentor of mine, he said, we're going to be practicing learning how to live to the day we die.
That's right.
There's no such thing
Absolutely.
as perfecting. He says, doctors, they practice medicine.
That's right.
Lawyers practice law.
Yep.
We're going to practice living to the day.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
That is absolutely wonderful.
Because we're going to keep making mistakes every day.
Robbie Hass wanted me to tell you that he's very proud of you, and he wanted to know what happened to his little quiet, timid Jason. I'll tell you what happened. I remember lining up on one time I was playing defensive tackle, and I'll never forget, we were freshmen, and I do not remember what happened. I was so excited though. I shed a block. You were playing offense, and I was playing defense. I shed the block, made a tackle. They crawled your tail.
Which they did a lot.
You came back to the line of scrimmage crying because you were so upset. You were crying. You were so mad. And I remember saying, "Oh my God!" And then when the ball was snapped, you hit me so hard. I thought my ancestors were crying. It was. I thought, whew, I hope this never happens again. I was trying to talk to you for the rest of practice that day. Every time we line up, I was like, "Hey, man, you good? We good?
We good." Well, speaking of Robbie, he was one of the guys that really inspired me to play football. When he played in the early '80s, and we always went to the games. I mean, I have a little bit of memory of going and seeing Robbie play. Robbie was a dang good football player.
Yeah.
Proud of my cousin. So.
Yeah. Robbie's a fun guy to be around too.
Oh,
He's got a lot of stories to tell.
He's a character.
He's got a lot of stories. My grandmother's been watching, and I'm gonna tell you, a lot of people that's familiar with me and my story, they know how close me and my grandmother are. Mm-hmm. And man, I wouldn't be who I am today without her. Mm-hmm. My mom was very important. My dad and I, we've reconnected, and we have a relationship that I never dreamed we would get to have, and I'm very thankful for that. My mom's brother, my Uncle Jerry, he's still around, and he and I are very close. I'm very thankful for that. But my grandmother, Jason, I tell you, there's very few people in my life, and I can name them on my hands. Mm-hmm. The people who, have made such a positive influence in my life. Those are the people that I desperately seek to avoid disappointing. Mm-hmm. She's one of those people, and Michelle, I don't know how you say her last name. Richard.
Oh, yeah.
She said to tell you, hello, we love you, baby giraffe.
Michelle is a fantastic leader. Yeah. She doesn't think she is, but she is. She's been a long time she works with us at Celebrate Recovery in Scottsboro, and she's been our ladies leader for a long time. She's been a part of the class that I teach, Voice of the Heart, and she's amazing. She's a wonderful, wonderful person. She now has created a Celebrate Recovery up here at Edgefield Baptist Church, and they're meeting on Tuesday nights. And for any of those of you that have hurts, habits, and hang-ups, and that's all of us, that's a good place to visit on Tuesday nights because Michelle runs a good one. I think I actually speak there, 2 weeks from tonight. So I'll be speaking at that Celebrate Recovery.
That's awesome, man. So. And that's another thing that I wanted to touch on right quickly before we get out of here is for those that don't know that you actually teach, you do classes. I know what we do here on Tuesday, and I'm very thankful for everybody that listens, but if you have troubles, if you have struggles that you need to connect with people and, tell the folks a little bit about what you do, when you do it, and,
Well, with Celebrate Recovery, we have step groups, and we have, of course, our large group worship is on Thursday nights at Scottsboro First United Methodist Church. We have a free meal begins at 5:30, and then worship begins at about 6:10 ish. We have a wonderful band. If you know Mike Roney, amazing musician. He has a band, group of guys that are just fantastic. Dr. Hardin Coleman, he's usually the worship leader. Either he or I lead up the worship. And then, again, every Thursday night we have a speaker. Usually it's either Michelle or myself or Woody Wooden or Dr. Hardin. We all give lessons. We have testimony nights. We have theologians, our pastors. They come and give some good talks, and that need to get you up there sometime. But Thursday nights, that's when we have our main meetings. I teach classes on Wednesday nights. Usually at 6:30 there at Scottsboro First United Methodist Church. Those Voice of the Heart classes. I'm also teaching one on Sunday mornings during Sunday school, Voice of the Heart. So we have lots of different great opportunities for, again, like you said, for people that need connection.
Yeah.
And that's what it's all about. We need to lean on each other.
Exactly right. And I'm not one of those people that say you just, we take anybody that wants to come, and we'll treat you as good as we can. But the body of Christ is so vast. Not everybody can be pinkies, and not everybody can be ring fingers or index fingers or thumbs. Takes all your digits, to make hands and feet. So if we're going to be the hands and feet, we got to learn to. I've just learned that everybody's not meant to be part of my congregation. And I'm not meant to be everybody's pastor. No matter how hard we try, we've all got a role to play.
I look at it like, for each of our church, I think I read somewhere where there's 45,000 different denominations in the Christian faith. And the thing about that is the diversity is a beautiful thing, because you may have somebody, they may not get my church. They may not like the way that we do things. But if they come to your church and they're hearing about Jesus Christ, man, that's great. Yeah. That's why it's a blessing.
Exactly.
For you to have that church. And then if maybe they don't like that, then they want to come to this. It's to me, it's as long as we're teaching the good news.
Exactly.
And to me, I praise every church and support every.
Yeah. If you can help somebody, I always say this, man. I used to go, and some people don't. They turn it off when I say something about it. I don't agree with everything Nick Saban says or does. But there's no denying that he has a knack for, leadership. He knows how to organize and do things and structure things. It's worked. His method is working in other places. Other people are using it against him, and that's okay. But I'll never forget something that I learned sitting in one of his seminars. He said, what's the point of doing something if it's not going to affect the outcome? If what you're doing is not going to help this person change for the better, then why not find a different way to help, to impact them? What works for one may not work for this one, and that's okay. But you can't do. You got to learn, and that's where I really discovered that I needed to invest in learning each individual person. Try my best to figure out as much as I can about that guy or this girl, so that I can help them get from here to here. When I started doing that, Jason, I found out that the ministry really expanded for me. The ability to help people grow and learn. At the same time, I grew and I learned.
You're being fulfilled because of
Yes.
the relationships that
Yes.
you're making. Yeah.
And I also discovered all my deficiencies became, everywhere that I was lacking became very evident to me. And then as I discover new places where I'm, I need to shore it up or step it up or, to completely change.
Well, you mentioned we all have deficiencies.
Yeah.
You said deficiencies. We all have them. It's one of the things in our class that we talk about with, Michelle, she talked about being a baby giraffe on ice. We all are. And to me, I think that's the beauty of how God designed us. We are, each one of us are lacking. And God made us that way so that we would reach for each other to be fulfilled. And so the only way we can be fulfilled is through relationship.
Right.
We're not intended to be on our own. And so God gave us these deficiencies because we're human beings so that I would reach for in relationship someone that can complete me. Because there are many, many things that I can't do well.
Yeah.
You don't want me fixing your car.
Right.
So I need to reach out.
Me either.
I need to reach out in relationship to somebody that can help me.
Right.
And that's the way God designed us. So, I've learned over the years to accept my deficiencies. It's okay that I have those. And it's okay to rely and lean on others that are stronger in those areas.
Yeah.
So,
And it's okay. It's also okay to step into your own, too.
Yes.
I think that's one of the things that I have enjoyed watching in your journey from a distance. I got to see you become, the boss, in some aspects, it's hard to put it into words. I'll just go back like a few years ago when they had the fires and you were the principal at Collins. We were organizing the fundraiser, and like we had approval to use the auditorium, but I wasn't over it, but I was trying to help the guy who was over it, and nobody called you. And you were, if it had been anybody else, man, that might have killed that thing. But you being, as humble and gracious as you are, you never said anything. And then I think I called and talked to you, and I was like, man, I'm sorry. We were just in a mad rush to try to get it done, and you knew that, but you didn't have such a spirit about you that you could have just killed the whole thing, because technically we were supposed to go through you, but you were but you were like, yeah, I would appreciate a phone call, but at the same time, I understand, and we're good. Just make sure this is done, that's done, and and things went. They just rocked on like they needed to. Those are all things that I know at the time it probably didn't seem like it that I learned anything from it, but I did learn something from it. It helped me. You don't know how many phone calls that I've made preemptively now for other things because I didn't make that one. Things that I think about now that nobody else thinks about when we're putting together, trying to organize meetings or events, things like that. Those are things now because of that, a lack of attention to detail. I think about that because that happened to somebody that I care about, and I see where that caused somebody else to have to make a hard choice. You know what I mean? It's do I let this go? You don't want everybody just trying to run over you, thinking you can't just get away with that kind of stuff. So you know, probably some of that though had to do with the fact that it was a genuine mistake. You know, and a good leader recognizes those things. And,
Grace.
Yeah, and you see those things, and you know, you realize that from a perspective of somebody who's got to answer for stuff. You can't just even if you want to, you can't just let everything slide.
Yeah.
But situationally, every situation calls for its own analysis and its own response. You got to deal with everything differently. That's something I've enjoyed watching you do. You do a good job staying out of a lot of things. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but it makes total sense in my mind. You said it earlier, giving people what they need to succeed, and then backing up out of the way. You don't take credit for it. You're not out front, you know, looking for a pat on the back. You just do it and you move on out of the way. I noticed that because, you know, just because I'm close enough to see it, but I think you do a great job, and I wish I could be a little more like you in that. I'm trying to figure out how to not take credit for as much, but you know, people tell me all the time now, you know, you need to take credit for this, take credit for that. No, I really don't want. I don't want the people to think that I did it. I'm just along for the ride. You know, I was fortunate enough to be part of it, and that's good enough for me at this point.
Yeah, I find as I've gotten older, I find much more fulfillment in serving.
Yeah.
Rather than, you know, a lot of times people think of leadership as being, you know, the one out front, you know, the one, you know, it's all about me. But, you know, I truly love seeing great people do great things, giving them the tools to do it, and getting out of their way.
Yep.
And,
you know, this has been a lot of fun for me. It's very rewarding to sit and talk to, you know, not really a peer as much as a friend. You know, you and I down through the years, probably on everything but football, at some point in time we've, you know, been on opposing viewpoints, you know, even, but the reason that I never felt uncomfortable around you is because you know, even though we differed in opinion, I knew looking down the road, our end goal was the same. And I learned very early, and I wish everybody could understand that about me. People get so upset. They think that I just despise them because we see things differently. That's not the case at all. I'm opinionated. Other people are opinionated. That's okay.
it's okay.
We can still sit and have a conversation, and we can disagree at the end of the day about anything. But if we agree on the one thing is that you don't have to like what I do. I don't have to like what you do or how you go about it or what you think about it. But if I know that at the end of the day, your goal is to make people better, to make the world better, then I'm supporting that. You know,
a lot of what you're talking about is just the willingness to sit and listen to somebody. They may have a different opinion than you do, but the willingness to sit and listen and contemplate, you know, where this person's coming from, why they're coming from, why they have this viewpoint, but also understanding that just because you have a different viewpoint doesn't mean that you're a bad person.
Right.
You know, I think that's what's sorely lacking right now in our society because, and I try to stay off of the news and all these kind of things, but when I do, basically what I've seen nowadays is that I'm this way, I believe this way, and because you believe differently, you're a horrible person.
Yeah.
And I wish we'd get back to, you know, civil discussions. I think that's what this country was built on. You know, I think it was meant for there to be healthy debate about different things. But I think the ultimate thing that when you look back at American history is that, like you're saying, they have the ultimate goal of making our country better or making our churches better or making our schools better. You know, we may have different viewpoints about how we're going to get to that end game, but we believe, hey, you may have a different viewpoint, but you're a good person. We're going to get there together.
Yeah.
And we just don't see that nowadays, and that's sad to me.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's difficult, and I've said this a lot. People that come to church here, they know, you know, exactly where I'm at. I'm as conservative as it generally as it gets. But I'm not conservative enough for some. Too conservative for others. I'm not old fashioned enough for some. I'm too old fashioned for others. I'm, you know, the same people who crucified the Lord. You know, Jesus was killed because he was a little too liberal for the Pharisees, and you know, but now he's too hard. His way, it's too much. It's, you know, I have developed this attitude that's where this whole thing came from. If we can figure out how to make less of ourselves and just make more of him, John the Baptist, you know, said it the best: I must decrease so that he can increase.
Absolutely.
If we're gonna make Jesus our example and the Bible our standard, we got to do things. And you know, the same person, the same Bible that I use, I could say, well, you know, I can spin it to a conservative side. Somebody else can take the same set of verses and spin it to a liberal side. And, you know, at the end of the day, Christ first.
Yeah.
And everything else is secondary for me. And you know, that's when I went to North Jackson. People, at first it was awkward because I still do PA for Scottsboro basketball. You know, every time the schools are together, I'm sitting over there smiling. Everybody's hollering, "Tater the Traitor," you know.
I'll have to use that from now on.
They do. The Scottsboro people do it to me during football season, and North Jackson people do it to me during basketball season. It's great, and it's all in fun, and I laugh about it. One of the greatest things of my life, last basketball season, when North Jackson came down to play, I'm sitting over there. I'm doing the PA. You know, my job is at that time is to do the best I can to, you know, to be
rev up Scottsboro,
up Scottsboro people. And I see all these guys that I just got done, you know, being the chaplain for their football season. Now they're playing basketball. I can't find it in my heart to be negative.
Yeah.
I put a little extra in their names that I didn't do for any other team. You know, and I think everybody sort of understood where I was at. But the greatest thing was before the game, during the warm-ups, every one of those kids that played football at North Jackson came over to the scorers table. Every one of them, you know, they dabbed me up. Yeah. That let me know that what I'm doing is they understand now as kids. Rivalries are fun. That's great that we have a rivalry, but there are relationships, and that's in that. And if you're not careful, these rivalries, they'll get you off.
They'll get you off of what's important.
Yeah.
They can. Absolutely.
And, you know, these kids are going to be involved in our community one day. And I already said it. You know, they're crossing up, you know, now. And eventually, you know, they're going to be on the other side. So pay attention to what's happening. Love as hard as you can, man, and really learn to love each other. And it's okay to compete against somebody. It's okay to be on opposite ends of the spectrum even, but work towards the same goal.
Well, that's what's so important at the end of a football game. What do you always say? You say the teams come across and shake hands. Yeah. And that's that's symbolic of the fact that, we get after each other for 40 or 60 minutes, whatever the game may be. But ultimately at the end of it, you know, we're all on the same team.
Yeah.
We're
absolutely, man. Jason, I appreciate you coming on. Is there anything you'd like to say or before we sign off?
You know, I had 3 guys that I work out with, Scott Hodges, Jeff Tubbs, and Jason Arnold. You know, they gave me a challenge before I came on today. They said that I had to get in 3 words, and they tried to make them as obscure as possible for me. Jeff said that I had to get in the word efficacy. Hodges said that I had to get in the word Barbie. And get this one, Jason Arnold said I had to get in the word marsupial. Marsupial. I don't know where he got that from. But they challenged me to get those words in, and obviously I haven't been able to do that because we've had, you know, important, serious conversations, and those 3 guys are anything but serious. Yeah. But I will.
They're important though.
They are. They're good guys. I'll say this. You know, those three guys. Today was Ken Holder. Do you know Ken?
Mm-hmm.
Today was his last day. He's retiring.
Gosh,
I know.
oh
Guys like Brad Dudley. You know, friends like that.
yeah,
You know what makes going again, seeing the kids, what you're doing for the kids, and then the relationships you have with guys like those guys, and you know, it's what makes this such a fulfilling job.
Yeah.
Is being able to just be around good people doing good things.
yeah.
So-
And I think that's the most fun thing about what I'm getting to do right now. That's the most fun thing about this, is I get to just sit and have conversation, civil conversation with people who have different jobs, different points of view, different ideas. I have learned a few things. I mean, I'll be honest with you, my mind has changed about some things since I started this podcast, just to sit and listen
Yeah.
to other people talk about, you know, and getting and hearing all the information. I think that's probably been the biggest thing for me.
It's amazing what happens when we open our minds and we just listen.
Yeah.
We learn a lot.
Yeah, and man, it's great. I hope that everybody's got as much out of this as I have tonight. It's been wonderful to sit and talk to you. It's been a long time since we just probably
time to sit, yeah.
had this
awesome.
time to just sit and chat, and I miss it. I really, you know, days like this makes you realize just how much you miss being able to do that. But I'm very proud of you, Jason. I'm very thankful that the Lord has, you know, kept us close enough that we still get to talk and chit chat, you know, from time to time. I appreciate all that you do, not just for our community, but for our kids, for the parents. You know, the whole, some of these days we're going to be gone from here. The day people like you leave this earth, it's going to be a little less better. And if nobody else ever tells you, I appreciate everything that you have done, are doing, and still will do in the future. It means a lot to me, and I'm sure it does to everybody that you affect. And I know by some of the comments tonight that you have affected people in a good way, and that's rewarding all by itself. Yeah.
Same to you. Everything you just said about me is the same for you. I mean, the ministry you do for the people here at your church, for the kids, you know, again, thank you for what you do, because, you know, you're making a difference in lives, and that's what it's all about.
I appreciate that. That's what it's all about, man. Just get out there and make a difference.
Yeah.
If you can't do anything else, try to make a difference and make it positive. You'll never go wrong. Raymond Cook, an old preacher, he used to say it ain't never going to be wrong to do right, but it ain't never going to be right to do wrong.
Yeah.
If you just focus on trying to do right and focus less on trying to do wrong, you know, you'll do a lot more things right.
You got that.
I appreciated that. Well, guys, that's going to wrap us up here tonight. I appreciate everybody tuning us in. Thank you again, Mr. Jason Hass, for joining us tonight. I hope everybody else has enjoyed as much as I have. So until next time, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. God bless you. Until next time, that's going to wrap it up tonight. Thank you for joining us, meeting us at the creek. Thank you for meeting us at the creek, and we hope you enjoyed today's podcast. If you have questions or comments you'd like for us to read, send those to mudcreekpastor@gmail.com. Again, that's mudcreekpastor@gmail.com. Thank you for meeting us at the creek, and we'll see you next time.